everybody, I'm Bree the Plant Lady, checking in with a late August weekly garden tour. As you can see behind me, my sunflower patch is definitely at its peak. I was hoping that this would be in bloom for the fall open garden on Saturday, September 21st. Unfortunately, I think that it will be in its getting seed ripened stage by then, but I am enjoying every minute of looking out my kitchen window and seeing this display, all of which was created from direct sowing seed. So without further ado, let me turn this camera around so that you can have an up-close view. I don't think there's anything that quite compares to the charm of a sunflower, and these are really great. I harvested this seed last year from a plant that was really well branched, and that's exactly what you're seeing here. You know, this is one plant with all of these flowers coming off of it. So a really desirable trait, and I'm showing you this one so that you can see that cute green spider. Hopefully that doesn't freak you out. But I love the sunflowers that will produce multiple blooms on one stalk. You know, I used to grow the traditional kind, but I'm really finding that I like this size. The scale is a bit more appropriate for my garden, and the continuous flowering habit of this is really extraordinary. I do really like it with this Rudbeckia in front. I have a fun color echo, obviously big difference in the size of the blooms, but I am over the moon happy with how this looks. I don't think it's gonna look as cute or as photo worthy for the open garden, but I'm certainly enjoying it now as we close out the month of August. Now, along the walkway here, I've been kind of impatiently waiting for these eggplants to finally start producing, and I see one that is ready. Oh yes, and this is Ping Tongue. This is one of my all-time favorite varieties of eggplant. Oh, I probably need pruners. There we go. This is great for sauteing or for roasting in the oven. It's not really the right kind of eggplant for making baba ganoush. Larger varieties are better for that. I kind of consider myself to be an eggplant chef lately because it's one of the primary vegetables that I eat now. And I really enjoy this pairing with the peanuts. Now, they're not quite getting enough sun because of all the eggplant foliage, but that's okay. I really like the textural combination here. And of course, that self-seeded Kufia is so charming. I love Kufia, period. And, you know, I like that there's some color differential in the blooms. You see that one's more pink, whereas this one is more red. And these have just been self-sowing since 2020. So really great, reliable, self-seeding summer annual that I highly recommend. Before I get strolling too far, I have to show you this hibiscus, which just continues to knock my socks off with all the blooms. I do not recall this ever reblooming this well in years past, and this has probably been in the ground 10 years. I don't remember the cultivar name, but these deciduous kind of perennial hibiscus really are great plants. We've got one planted out at the neighborhood entry, and it's thriving, even though that is a horrible place to be a plant. So I highly recommend these types of hibiscus. As I walk along here, I'm very excited to show an update that the electrical and plumbing is in process. In fact, I think one more visit it'll be done. You can see they brought in a trencher. All the lines are 3 foot deep and filled with water because that has reached the water table here. So it's really pretty interesting. You don't have to dig very deep, which makes me definitely think I need to get a well, because you don't really need to dig so deep to hit water. Why am I paying for city water? And we have potted up a bunch of ornamental grasses for the fall open garden. We've got 2 varieties of panicum and pink muley. We have some other fun surprises for the open garden that I'll show you in a bit. Now, coming back over here, I'm really pleased with this corner with the sesame, the sunflowers, and the sorghum. These are 3 plants that I always recommend growing together to be able to grow your own bird seed. And we already have a very healthy yellowfinch population that will probably only increase because the yellowfinches love the seeds from all 3 of these plants. I'm also really happy that this bed looks good from all angles, because sometimes that doesn't happen. And at least in this moment, the sunflowers have really pretty great coverage through the entire space, and it makes this pathway extra interesting. As we come along here, I'm quite pleased to let you know that I have been making some progress on gravel. And you know, I have Chapel Hill grit here. I'm putting down 57. 57 is better because it doesn't run, but I certainly like the look of the Chapel Hill grit better. So I'll probably end up putting some more Chapel Hill grit just to finish this section, and then it'll be 57 gravel all the way back. I have some more to do. This is basically what I do at the end of the day to help ensure that I will sleep soundly at night. And I probably need at least 5 more yards. So this is going to be a project that keeps me occupied for a while. And I'm so happy to show you this very robust Edgeworthia chrysantha. This had actually gotten nipped down by an early freeze probably 4 or 5 years ago, and it really looked quite terrible. It died mostly to the ground, and then this is what's resprouted. It's I had to cut the big one down by the garage. I'm really pleased to see that this one is starting to pick up speed. I've got some branches that need to be trimmed, but overall I'm really happy to see that this plant is growing so well. And actually everything in the borders just looks really terrific. I think this is the best that this property border has ever looked. Well, the deer have been doing some nibbling, so I've put in some cattle fence to protect this newly planted area. Pleased to see everything growing so well here. And all of the edibles planted here along this side of the greenhouse are doing great. I harvested a nice batch of peppers, eggplants, cucumbers, tomatoes. I've got a bunch of melons that are coming. And well, you know, though I have vegetables planted everywhere, this zone in particular is really great because I've got easy access to a hose. Well, I did put the plant list up on my website that will be available for the open garden, but one thing that Aiden suggested and we've decided to follow through on is setting up a build your own foodscape container for the open garden. And today we went to Big Bloomers and got a bunch of cool season vegetables, including lettuce, several types of cauliflower, broccoli, mustard, cabbage. But you might be wondering, why are they tucked under this frost cloth? That is to help prevent the cabbage worms from getting to them. They're also dusted freshly with BT. And I have found in the past that covering everything with remay at this season is the easiest way to prevent those cabbage loopers from laying their eggs, which ultimately turn into the caterpillars that absolutely decimate your brassica crops. So, fingers crossed, we only have a couple more weeks to be able to grow these out and be able to offer some cool season vegetables at the fall open garden. It's so funny, sometimes you don't see the fruit until you look at it from a different angle, and here I've got a whole bunch of cucumbers to harvest. And I like harvesting them at this smaller stage because I cut them in quarters and I use them as pickles. Well, hopefully you watched my containers video that I made last week. The irony is, I was like, wow, I can't believe that calibrachoa is still alive. And then I messed with the pot and look, the calibrachoa is dying. Just like that. It never ceases to fail. But I really like this plant, which I picked up from Walmart of all places. And of course the addition of the turmeric I think is a great thing. Everything here in the fire pit is doing great. You can see that the mangave that are blooming are just about getting ready to start to open. They aren't open yet, but nice big spike on this one, another one coming behind it. I've been harvesting a lot out of these pots as well. Lots of eggplants and more tomatoes. Definitely so impressed with these dwarf heirloom varieties that I picked up from the State Farmers Market in Raleigh. These are all the genetics from Craig LaHoulier, who wrote the book Epic Tomatoes. If you're not familiar, you should look that up. He is incredible. And well, if you can get your hands on these next year, I highly recommend them compared to the traditional heirloom varieties. These have just been disease-free, and you can see their foliage is definitely succumbing, but that's totally normal. And the fact that it's the end of August and they're still alive, that's a huge accomplishment. And I'm really pleased to see that the greenhouse is quickly becoming a greenhouse, being completely covered with squash, gourds, whatever all of this is. To be honest, there's a good mix of different things. You can see this one basically has a flower coming at every single leaf terminal, so that should be fun to watch some fruit develop. In years past, this has been completely covered, and it's such a great photo op. So fingers crossed we get a little more growth so that it will be covered for the fall open garden. And behind the bananas, you can see they are blooming and fruiting. I love this tropical border. Coming around this way, the hops are doing exceptionally well, covering this generally underutilized arch. And as we make our way along here, the flocks are starting to wane, but still during the daytime, lots of pollinator activity. But I think I've just had a new generation of swallowtails emerge. And today, the zinnias have just been completely covered with swallowtails. Unfortunately, haven't had a lot of monarch sightings, but swallowtails are definitely here and loving it, and really kind of gives me the satisfaction of this is exactly what I was trying to achieve when I planted this, and it's so wonderful that it has actually come to fruition. We are starting to get some pretty significant powdery mildew, which of course is totally normal. I did not do a second seeding of zinnias this year, so when they succumb, I'll just start ripping them out, but hopefully they won't succumb too soon because I definitely want to be able to keep them for the pollinator activity. So we've just had a week of first fake fall, which if you're not from the South, you might not understand what that means, but it's where we have at least a few days of a very different weather pattern that reminds you that weather can be wonderful. Because typically in North Carolina, you know, we're in the upper 90s in August and very, very humid, but often very dry. And this past week we actually had record low. I think it went to like 54 degrees at the airport. And low humidity, clear blue skies, no clouds, highs in the low 80s. Like it's like Michigan or Maine weather. That's ending. I think it actually officially ended today because today was pretty hot, but the next few days it's just going to get hotter and hotter and hotter, and we have like close to 100 degrees by the middle of the week. But that's also normal. Just wanted to say how much I appreciated first fake fall, because it is one of those weather patterns where you're like, okay, there is hope at the end of the tunnel. I keep hovering here because of all the butterflies, but I also wanted to give you an up-close view of what the rice is looking like now. You can see that the seeds are starting to mature a lot more. They're starting to get that nice arching habit. I think rice is one of the most elegant grasses that you can grow. The fact that you can eat it is just an added bonus. But for how easy it is, remember this is in a pot with no drainage holes. It's just sitting right there in the landscape. And it adds such a cool textural element. And it's such an unusual thing to be able to talk to people about. Well, as I make my way over here, you can see there's Golden Panther. Not sure what she's hunting at this moment. The persimmon bed is doing very well. Again, I've been conscientious about keeping things watered so the fruits don't fall off as they have in years past. And these eggplants and peppers are really starting to fruit. And I'm going to have enough eggplant to get through the entire winter. There's no questioning that. You can see this is Nikita's Gift, a really great hybrid persimmon. Obviously not ripe at all, but really happy to see so much fruit set. Now, a tree you might not be super familiar with is Neolithia, which is this broadleaf evergreen here. You can see its flower buds are really starting to puff up, so this will probably be in bloom for next week's open garden. And it has a wonderful lemony fragrance. These are bright yellow. And next to it is another favorite plant of mine that is just about getting ready to bloom, which is definitely the sign that autumn is coming. This is the fragrant tea olive, Osmanthus fragrans. This is variety Aurantiacus, which is an orange form. You can see those flower buds, not open yet, but forming. This will be in flower very soon. And I did finally do the pruning that I had been talking about for probably a month. And you can really see that the black mudras rice is just so beautiful. And you can see that it is going to seed. It's great chartreuse seed heads here with that amazing dark purple foliage. I trimmed back the coleus, so that should, puff back out and look really good for the open garden. This poblano pepper is doing amazing. This is why I always use tomato cages for peppers, because they get so doggone big here. And then I did trim back that kufia, and you could see the kufia has actually picked up some of its kind of cool weather color because of the night temperatures that we've had recently. So hopefully I didn't mess anything up by pruning it in mid-August. It'll be great to see. I am still deeply in love, and this is absolutely my favorite kufia of all time, the bat face. It's a wonderful annual ground cover. I just think these flowers are the coolest, and you can see why it's called bat face or mouse face. I always think it looks like Mickey Mouse. Those big ears. I'm really pleased with how this bed turned out, and I know I've said it in past weekly tours, but I never regret doing major renovations in the garden since it is 12 years old, and it's beds like this that make me motivated to go and maybe do some more big tear outs at different seasons throughout the garden. Well, everybody, I hope that this installation of my late August weekly garden tour will serve as inspiration. I certainly do hope that you will be able to make it for the fall open garden. We have some really awesome vendors coming. Free Tag Pottery, Weston Farms Magnolia, and I just found out that Charleston Shoe Company, my favorite shoes of all time, are going to come and do a pop-up sale at the open garden. So if the plants aren't enough to intrigue you to come, maybe shoe shopping will. They are the most amazing shoes. They are machine washable. They're all different colors, and you see me sporting them basically in every single video. So I do hope that you'll tune in tomorrow for the front gardens. And as always, thanks so much for watching. Happy gardening, everybody.